Show. First of all, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you. And one, I want to thank you for having me, Paul. We've known each other for a while. I've been very happy to be on your show.
Yes, sir.
For your audience, yes, my name is Robert Hillman, and I'm running for the 6th District City Council for Charlotte. I am a proud father, loving son, and brother. I'm particularly proud of my daughter, Brianna, as she is part of the COVID planning team for pre-K through 12 in the department superintendent of the superintendent of the School of Education in Washington, D.C. I'm particularly proud of her. She has picked up the mantle of service from her parents and grandparents. My father is a Marine. My mother is a PTA president. As a finance executive in investment banking, an investment advisor in financial markets, engineer, and public servant for nearly 30 years, I have a track record of successfully using my expertise to help our community. I believe in 3 principles for a stronger, more vibrant future for Charlotte as its next District 6 City Councilman. They come in 3s, right? Growing together, moving together, and safer together. What's growing together is about? It's about creating opportunities for economic growth and job creation through the pursuit of policies such as public-private partnerships and workforce development programs. I'm a particular, and other things like the UDL, where that'll help with the planning process and streamline business setup in Charlotte. Growing together means working to increase upward mobility for all of our citizens, protecting our clean air and water, and transitioning to a clean, renewable energy. 2, moving together. That's about working with state, local, federal, and regional officials to increase the number of transportation options for Charlotte. We need more light rail. We need more walk paths. We need bikeways. We need additional light rail, and we also need commuter rail. What that will do for the area is enhance job opportunities and improve our quality of life. Lastly, want to talk about being safer together, and that's really about improving the relationship between the community and the police. We need to love the police, and the police need to love us. And if we can do that, people will be safer in their spaces and in their daily lives. In closing, fundamentally, I believe we are stronger together than we are apart, and I want to bring that energy to Charlotte City Council District 6.
Great, Mr. Hillman. Tell the audience what made you want to run for office.
It's out of that commitment to community service, and it's also kind of somewhat selfishly. I'm an engineer by training, and I'm a banker also by training. And a lot of the things that the city does are, from the perspective of planning and or from the perspective of fundraising, are finance adjacent or civil engineering or engineering related. So there's a component of me which is, this is going to be very interesting for me, just as a from the fundamental things that I have done in life. But I also think, for the residents of District 6, I bring some skills and talents that allow me to be effective day one on the job.
I know a lot of people from Charlotte, they may not be familiarized with their district. So what would be considered the 6th district?
Yeah, and I'll do it a couple of ways, because you can look at it by neighborhoods, you can look at it by streets, and you can look at it by zip codes. Probably the easiest one would be zip codes, because there's only 3 of them. So that's 28210, 28211, and 28226. If we're talking about neighborhoods, we're talking about Madison Park, Starmont Forest, Beverly Woods, Lansdowne, Cotswold, Myers Park, South Park, Quail Hollow, Carmel, Park Crossing, Stonehaven, to name a few. There are some more neighborhoods, and if I've left you out, it was not by intention, but there's a lot of little subdivisions in the footprint. Street-wise, what you're looking at more or less is at the north, and it's kind of cutting out a little bit of the folks who are in Myers Park and Eastover, but Windover over to South Boulevard down to 485, and then McAlpine Creek across to Monroe, and then Monroe up again to Windover. And that's, again, broad strokes, because you know how political lines run, they kind of snake in and snake out of places, but that's pretty much the footprint. So if you know anybody that lives in that footprint, Paul, have them give me a call. I'd love to talk to them about their priorities, discuss, what the energy I bring, the talents I bring, and see what I can do for them to improve their quality of life.
Okay, what as far as the economy does the 6th district bring to Charlotte, and what do you feel needs to be brought to the 6th district?
That's a great question. The 6th district has a number of large businesses, Coca-Cola Consolidated being one of them. South Park Mall is another one, where there several businesses that are in there. And that would be one of the largest clusters of businesses in the community. There are also several small business owners distributed throughout in various either strip malls or in various shops. The things that we want to make sure happen in District 6 is that we create a business environment that is pro-growth, that creates that allows those businesses to either set up or expand and create jobs for people to come to. We also want to make sure we create transportation systems so that people can kind of get to those jobs. And lastly, want to make sure people feel, as I say, safe, so that that they don't feel like they're at risk of losing, their life or their property, more importantly. And so in terms of my background in bond issuance and in financial services, what I bring to the table is an extended experience working with large investors as well as small investors. And all of that comes down to making sure that we take the money that comes into our area, and that's either tax revenue generated by those businesses that are in the footprint of District 6, and making sure that we spend that money, or money coming from the federal government or the state government. We want to make sure those funds are spent well so that we can foster more economic activity, grow the tax base, and increase wealth. Now, we also want to make sure that we're mindful as we create wealth or grow, right? Because it's extraordinarily important as you do that you have to be mindful of upward mobility. In Charlotte, one of the unfortunate situations that we have is that while we have rampant growth throughout some parts of the city, a lot of the residents in the city aren't experiencing upward mobility that would and should come along with that. And so one portion of my goal objective is actually to connect the folks in the South Charlotte to the folks in the rest of the city, i.e., hence the idea of being stronger together, working together, moving together, growing together, and being safer together. It's all about kind of pulling people together so that we can create economic opportunities for people throughout, create economic opportunities and upward mobility for people throughout the city. And by doing so, we improve the business prospects for the region and the city and the district, right? Because if we're firing on all cylinders, if we're working with all of our people, that is how you get growth. That's the best way to get growth. When you start to do things where you isolate people or you separate people, sometimes it's suboptimal in terms of economic growth and economic activity. So my goal again is to kind of pull it together, to act as a conduit between the 6th district and the rest of the city, to make sure that not only are the businesses in the 6th district strong, prosperous, unencumbered by legislation, and free to grow so that they can create jobs, but also rope in folks from around the city to participate in that.
Okay, we're going to talk about some more issues that we possibly may have in the 6th district that some of your voters may want to talk about. Let's talk about some crime, and how do you feel it is right now, and what do we need to do to possibly reduce it?
Crime is too high. right? Without a doubt, it's too high, and it needs to, excuse me, needs to come down. And so the question is, well, how do we achieve that? And I'm a firm believer that the best crime prevention program is strong economic growth with a focus on upward mobility, right? So because there's an expression that we all know, idle hands are the playground of the devil. What I think and know is that there are far too many idle hands, and as people are idle, they engage in, can engage in criminal activity where they would otherwise not engage in that activity if there was something for them to do. So part of the crime prevention program or crime reduction program has to have a strong component of workforce development and training, where we can get folks into programs to train for the jobs that exist in Charlotte so that they can be viable citizens, earn a good living wage, and not be idle, right? Because again, to the extent that they're idle, then they're going to find, stuff to do that's not productive for the society at large. And again, as we can, push crime down, as we get folks more engaged, what will then happen is that you get economic growth. The people, more people, you increase the attractiveness of Charlotte to corporations, to entrepreneurs who will come here, set up businesses because the workforce is effective and trained and ready to go to work.
How about the people who have criminal record that are having problems getting job because of their prior record? What do we do to solve that problem?
Yeah, no, I've worked a couple of things that I've done with regard to that. There's the Community Culinary School of Charlotte. I served on the board of that organization, and how I ended up getting involved with them was I was on the planning committee for Taste of the Nation Charlotte, which is a fundraiser. It was an annual fundraiser from the No Kids Hungry not-for-profit, posted in Charlotte downtown. And the fundraiser contributed to two organizations, Second Harvest and the Community Culinary School of Charlotte. And once I got engaged with the community school, it was awesome, because the focus of that school is to basically give people who are hard to employ, quote unquote, a skill that would allow them to, and the skill will be culinary skill. So they can learn how to be a chef or a cook, a line cook, go from not and have a decent paying job to go along with that skill. And that program has been very successful at moving people from and hard to employ also includes not only people with issues of incarceration, but it would also include people with substance abuse issues, also people who just, again, maybe personality disorders, but also just people who are hard to employ, who find it difficult. So you don't have to have been incarcerated. You don't have to have been addicted, and you don't have to. You literally could be like, hey, I'm experiencing some issues finding employment. You apply, you get you get accepted to the school. They train you. Chef Ron Ehlert, who's run that program for years, is a wonderful human being and does God's work. So programs like that is how what you have to do is you have to rehabilitate people, give them a skill, and put them in situations where their past record does not matter. And you also have to get rid of, and this is happening, things like, and this across the country needs to happen, things like check the box where you have to sign, hey, well, I was an offender. That's just again, that's anti-growth, right? That robs employers of employees, and it constrains the workforce, and it constrains the workforce unnecessarily.
Another issue that we probably need to discuss is the infrastructure, and how do we do to improve that within the 6th District?
Oh, great. Infrastructure. Now, as you may be aware, there was the infrastructure law that was passed. And so what's going to happen is a large amount of money, a tidal wave of money is going to be coming towards states and municipalities for infrastructure projects. And what that will require is that you have people on council who can look at those proposals, that look at the proposals that come in on the one hand and understand, how to manage money that coming in on the other hand, so that the money is spent well. As a financial executive in investment banking, one of the jobs is to basically analyze, projections, to look at business plans, to understand models and budgets. And so that's a skill that I bring that's fairly unique
Correct.
to the table. From the perspective also having my engineering background, a lot of the infrastructure things are engineering adjacent. And so I've got a wonderful background under which to be able to understand and comprehend what technology can and cannot do. I mean, things in the 6th District are fairly important. Kind of as I alluded to earlier, were better bus networks that bring people from around the city to the 6th District so that they can work. The price point of housing in the 6th District is rather high. So if you are if you're a working class individual, you're going to need to either drive your car or get on a bus or take Uber or some form of ride your bike, perhaps walk. Walking might be a little tricky because it might be a long way, but the idea is that improved transportation networks are tremendously helpful. So more buses, more light rail, more commuter lines will ultimately benefit the businesses that reside in the 6th District, as people are able to get to them from public transportation. And so that's one area. So public transportation is a huge infrastructure, a huge place for monies to be invested. The other place would be, and I've experienced this, and this is particularly maybe more of a COVID related observation, which is the center city, well, that's not really the center city. Charlotte District 6 in particular is have some of the older communities in the area. And so the infrastructure with regard to fiber is not at the same level as, say, other newer neighborhoods, where in a newer neighborhood, the contractors come in, they can basically dig and put down cable, put down whatever fairly quickly. Not that it's impossible to do in the 6th District, but right now the Wi-Fi, the data speeds are a little slower than the rest of the city. So one of the things I want to look into, and some of that's quite personal, is to improve and increase the data speeds for the remote workers that live in District 6.
I know one of the biggest problems that we have, especially with businesses, is the decline of workers in the workforce due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have people that either don't want to work or are afraid to work. How are we supposed to solve this problem in District 6? But it's happening around the world.
That's a question. That's a conversation that I've had with my daughter fairly frequently about what needs to be done. And so coming from the expert in the family, what needs to be done is vaccinations. People need to get vaccinated. They need to get boosted. We need to continue to do testing fairly frequently. We need to continue to wear masks. All of those things, again, people are not comfortable with, people are getting tired of, but they are helping. It is working. It's just, and it could work a lot faster if we had, better compliance. As it relates to the labor force, and people there's a couple of challenges as it relates to the labor force. One is COVID. Do you feel comfortable working in a closed space where the possibility of becoming infected is higher? It's a real concern. Hence, a lot of companies have not gone back to in-person.
Mr. Hillman, we have to close the thing, but maybe we can come back on another session. If someone needs to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
They could give me a call, 704-266-3218. They can go on my website, vote for FOR Hillman, HILLMAN.com. That's voteforhillman.com. They can also follow me, and I really love people to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at vote FOR Hillman, HILLMAN. And it's Hillman like the college and the Cosbys.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hillman, for coming on the show, and we're going to bring you back so we can talk some more about your candidacy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the show. Thank you, Mr. Hillman, and you be encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you.